Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Luke bringing you my preview for DraftKings and this week's Northern Trust for golf this weekend. We're going to be going over my top six DraftKings plays for this week, one in each price tier in the salary ranges on DraftKings, to give you guys an idea of some of my foundational pieces that I'll be building around in my GPP contest for this weekend. We will be implementing my data-based approach as always to help take on daily fantasy sports. I use my expertise as an engineer, some of the modeling techniques, some of the visualizations that I've learned to use over the years to take on daily fantasy sports. We're going to be doing that this weekend, going over some of my model's top ranked plays, so keep that on mind. On top of covering the PGA Tour, I also cover the NFL, NBA, UFC, and more. So if you're looking for data-based content, just like you're going to see in this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you guys can catch all of that. There's something for everybody there. So without further ado, though, let's hop into the top six picks for the Northern Trust. Beginning with our spend up tier, the guy's priced above $10,000. My model's favorite play this week is Brooks Koepka, coming in at $10,200. And up until his mediocre performance last week at Memphis, a couple weeks ago, he was absolutely dealing. He is coming in with three top six finishes all in a row, all at big time events. And Brooksy was finally able to show what good health can do for his form. I expect a return to that sort of form this week at Liberty National. For Koepka to put his foot down in the playoffs for the first time in quite some time. Koepka's most notably one of the most, motivation-based players on the PGA Tour. At major championships, he ramps up his intensity. He seems to perform well at every single major championship. But we really haven't seen that intensity in the playoffs in the past. And to me, that's a little bit surprising. There's so much money on the line, so many FedEx Cup points on the line as well, even more so than major championship events. And I think it's just a matter of time before we see him step up his game at one of these events. Even with the four mediocre rounds at Memphis, over his last 14 measured rounds, Koepka's been insane. He's been gaining 0.89 shots gained off the tee per round, also 0.68 shots gained approach. That makes up for 1.57 shots gained ball striking per round. That's top five in the field. So it hasn't been an issue with his ball striking by any means. And obviously with shots gained off the tee and shots gained approach being two of my most important statistics for this week at Liberty National, I'm obviously going to love his course fit. If I were to cherry pick the stats and only include his measured rounds at the Travelers and US Open, two of his better starts over his last four, he would come in number one in shots gained across all stats categories. So all four major stat categories, he'd come in number one. Amazingly enough, he has a second place finish at the PGA Championship just a few weeks before that stretch. So he's been on an absolute heater, and that was before he's even gone back to full health. He said in his last presser that he feels the best he ever has. He doesn't even think about the knee anymore. And it really all depends on what version of Koepka we get this week. If he comes out in major championship focus, major championship form, he could very well go out and storm the field. If he comes out a little bit lackadaisical, shows a little bit less effort than usual, he's going to go and miss the cut. So I think he's a highly volatile play. But up top, I really think that he has the highest upside, and I really do think he has that motivation coming this time around. For my second man in, we have Viktor Hovland, priced at $9,500. We haven't really seen the fireworks out of Hovland of late. We're used to seeing him shoot, 7 under, 8 under rounds in contention week in and week out. But because he hasn't had those flashy performances of late, he's getting a little bit less attention. He's still priced up high, and I expect him to come in relatively low owned this week. So he's a ball striking specialist if you're new to DFS or DFS golf, and that acumen is going to do wonders at the Liberty National. So if we take a look at his last 5 starts, he's made all but one cut, and the only exception there was a withdrawal from the US Open. If you guys remember, he got sand in his eye, ended up having a withdrawal. Must have been pretty nasty because he was playing pretty decent to that point. But over that stretch, his best finish is a T12, so perhaps that's why he's being overlooked. Again, it hasn't been very flashy, but statistically, he's been very, very much on brand. He has gains of 0.57 strokes off the tee, 0.73 strokes on approach, for a total of 1.3 shots gained ball striking. So that's excellent. Again, that's top 15 in the field, despite some of his poorest play of the year. And however, just like Koepka, he's had his short game woes. He hasn't been his best with the putter. He's a little bit streaky when it comes to the putting, and we saw that the good side of that streakiness at the Aberdeen Open. While that's not something that we had ShotLink data at, we don't have the statistics for it, he won the Aberdeen Open and had some excellent rounds in the 63, 65 range, really putted the ball well. So If we had those shots gained stats in the database, obviously his stats would look a lot better. I think he'd be a lot closer to a neutral putter. He's actually gained strokes putting on the year, so he's due for some positive regression. He hasn't really been rolling his rock that much of late. And obviously, he's been a ball striking specialist the entire year. So I really like his upside. I think he's going to be a little bit overlooked given his recent form. And guys, the last time we had this happen with Viktor Hovland was at the Koepka Classic last year. He had been coming in with just a couple, 20, 30th place finishes, which for Viktor Hovland is pretty bad. So I went pretty high on him. And the last time this happened, I won $25,000 in the GPP. So some good vibes with Viktor Hovland when he's coming in a little bit sluggish, because he doesn't stay sluggish for very long. And for our bread and butter play, we have Joaquin Niemann, an $8,100 golfer who, to be quite honest with you, could be in the $9,000 range this week, and I would still be comfortable with rostering him. He flashed that immense potential that he has at the Rocket Mortgage with a second place finish. He has a skill set to harness that ceiling once again here in Jersey City. Over his last 22 rounds, he's gaining 0.59 shots gained off the tee, 0.44 shots gained putting, and still gaining on approach with 0.19 shots gained per round. So he puts himself in a ton of scoring opportunities with that length and his precision. And he's one of the few players off the tee that is both long and accurate. Obviously, that's encapsulated with that stout shots gained number there. But his putting ability has often been overlooked as well. He's been a top 10 putter on the entire tour for the year. Combined with his ball striking, that's been a threat week in and week out. We've seen him contend at some of the majors. We've seen him contend essentially every week that he's competed on tour. And at $8,100, a little bit further down the board, I expect him to be a very good DraftKings play, especially with his streakiness. He's a very volatile golfer, somebody who's one of the best fantasy scorers, period, on the entire slate. Due to his ability to get birdie streaks. If you guys are new to DraftKings, if you guys play FanDuel, you may not be familiar with the birdie streak bonuses that they have on DraftKings. If you get a snowman, aka 3 birdies or better in a row, you get a 3.5 point bonus. And while it doesn't seem massive, that's essentially 1 extra birdie on your card. Over 4 rounds, when you can get 4 of those bonuses, it can be massive. It can be the difference between scoring 90 and 105 points. And that kind of difference is essentially, GPP winning upside. So Joaquin Niemann, I love his volatility. I love his skill set for this golf course. If he does have a weakness, it's definitely his around the green play. But of late, he's been a lot better in that category. He's only losing 0.05 shots gained per round around the green, which is essentially negligible. And given how hot his irons can get, given how good he keeps himself in play with his off the tee play, I don't think he's gonna miss many greens. He's not gonna put himself in many bad situations. And even when he does, he's been much better around the green of late. So I really like how he's trending. I like what we saw at the Rocket Mortgage as well, and I'm all in on Joaquin Niemann this week. For my value play, we have Matt Fitzpatrick. At $7,900, he's a little bit more expensive than I usually like to spend for my value plays, but we've already saved up a good amount of salary by spending down for our first 3 picks. So I'm all right spending up here a little bit. So he checks 2 of the 3 boxes I'm looking for this week. And a little bit further down the board, that's the best we're going to do. He's a short game specialist. He also happens to have a top 10 off the tee game in the world. Over his last 14 rounds, which includes an ugly miscut, the Memorial, some mediocre 30, 40th place finishes, he's still gaining 0.76 shots gained off the tee per round. That's crazy to imagine, especially for such a small guy. If you guys know Frankie Borelli from the Barstool podcast, he's not a very big guy. He's probably the only guy that I could beat up in the entire tour. So they always joke about it. He's not a very big guy in stature, but when it comes to his off the tee statistics, he's up there with like Dustin Johnson. He's up there with like Bryson, believe it or not. It's just crazy to think about. While the rest of his game has faltered a bit of late, we haven't really seen that short game magic. When we take a little bit of a zoom out, we take a look at his season-long statistics. He's top 10 in shots gained around the green, also top 10 in shots gained putting. So obviously due for some positive regression in those two categories. And with such small greens that play at Liberty National, players are going to have to get up and down even if they're pretty good with their irons. Unless you get an absolute heater, like I expect someone like Joaquin Niemann or Viktor Hovland to get in, you're going to have that ability to get up and down. And luckily, Matt Fitzpatrick, for his entire career, has been a guy who's been very good, very skilled at getting up and down from bunkers, just from regular chip shots and whatnot. He's also been volatile of late, which for me in a GPP and when you're looking for DraftKings play is a good thing. I'm looking for someone to finish in that top 5, top 10. If they finish 20th or 30th, I really don't care. It doesn't really pay off. Maybe if you're playing a cash game, they do, but that's not my cup of tea. So I absolutely like his game for this golf course. I think his up and down ability is going to be nice. His off the tee play, very underrated, going to pay off a ton this week. The irons definitely need to come around, but if that happens, he's definitely in contention this week. Now for my diamond in the rough. We have Ryan Palmer, a $7,100 golfer. We're just going to start calling Ryan Palmer Mr. Value Play at this point. He's seemingly always underpriced on DraftKings, especially in big-time events, and it's no exception this week. We haven't seen him much of late, that's for sure, but he's definitely worth a few shots down low because his skill set fits Liberty National to an absolute T. Again, over the last 2 months, he only has 6 measured rounds, and to be quite honest with you, they're all ugly. He has a missed cut, one made cut that ended up being a 40th place finish. But again, if we zoom out on Ryan Palmer, take a look at some of his stats over the last 36 measured rounds, the picture becomes much brighter for Mr. Value Play. He gains everywhere except around the green. He boasts solid gains of 1.15 shots gained total, which with gains of 0.73 shots gained off the tee, which is excellent. That is top 15 in the field, and 0.7 shots gained putting per round as well. Both of those are great numbers, so he's been filling it up off the tee and on the greens. He's only gaining 0.2 shots gained approach over that stretch, which is a little bit concerning. He's been going under some swing changes as well. He, about 2 years ago, went to a fade, was hitting a fade for pretty much every single shot. And right around the match play of this year, so about 3-4 months ago, he started hitting a draw out of nowhere, and he hadn't done that for a few years. He went to his swing coach, started to change some things up. Perhaps that's why we haven't seen him that much of late. Perhaps that's why he was only gaining 0.2 shots gained approach over that stretch. But if we take a zoom out and look at his season-long statistics, he's getting a solid 0.6 shots gained approach per round. So somebody who's been a ball-striking phenom this year, somebody who has been putting much better than he's used to of late. If he can have that swing come back around, if he can continue that hot momentum with the putter, he's somebody who's going to win very soon. It's when somebody's clicking in all 4 shots gained categories, when we see this upward trajectory where just one piece of the game needs to come around, those are guys I really like to target for outright bets because when that ceiling comes around, when they capture that ceiling, it's going to be when it's not expected. You're going to get a large inflated number on them as well. And the path for success is much wider than you would expect, right? It's only one part of his game that needs to come around, and for Ryan Palmer, it's something that he's historically been great at. So a bet for me this week, somebody that I also really love in DraftKings. And finally, for our flyer play, this is my favorite play in the entire slate, someone I also bet on, even better play than Ryan Palmer. At $6,500, we have Matt Wallace. He's beyond a solid value down low. While he hasn't been a PGA Tour regular by any means this year, with less than 10 starts for the year, that just shows you how good his quality of play has been to make it the whole way to the playoffs. Over his last 36 rounds, he's somebody we have to take a little bit of a zooming out on just because he hasn't started that much on the PGA Tour. He's gaining a crazy 1.99 shots gained total per round. That includes gains of 0.96 shots gained approach per round, 0.96, that's crazy, 0.71 shots gained around the green per round. So he's been an absolute chipping specialist, and he's still gaining off the tee with 0.23 shots gained per round. So all those stats are key stats for me this week. Those are my top 3 in that order. And it's not like he's been a bad putter by any means either. He's still gaining with his putter 0.1 shots gained per round. And to me, it's just astonishing that he's priced down this low. He even had an 8th place finish last week at the Kazoo Open on the European Tour. And to me, Wallace is an 8K range golfer priced in the mid 6K range. He's borderline lock material for me this week. I've already bet him as well. I think the potential is just that high for him. He's my favorite play on this slate, probably my favorite value play of the entire year. A few weeks ago it was Sam Burns at the Open Championship. Now it's Matt Wallace here. So absolutely love him this week, and he'll be a staple of pretty much every lineup that I enter this week. That's all I've got for this week's preview, guys. Let me know in the comments who your favorite DraftKings pick is for this week for a chance to win a free month of my Patreon projections. If you guys haven't seen my Patreon page before, the link is in the description. It's just $1 to join. On there, you guys get projections for all players playing in this week's field, as well as all the tournaments to come. Again, it's only $1 for the month. You get full projections for every player in the field. You also get access to my model rankings. You get access to my ownership projections, also access to my player poll, all kinds of good stuff. A Discord server to ask me any questions, to communicate with the community. Overall, it's a great value. Again, link is in the description. And let me know in the comments who you guys think is your favorite play this week for a free chance to earn that. I'm also going to have videos coming out later on this afternoon for my favorite value plays for DraftKings this week. Tomorrow, we're going to have my ownership reaction video where we go over my top fades and sleeper picks. So tons of PGA Tour content to come. So make sure to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of those videos to come. Make sure to check out my QB rankings video as well. That's going to be coming out this afternoon as well. If you guys are into fantasy football, if you guys do season-long NFL fantasy, make sure to check that out. I'm going to be ranking my top 24 fantasy QBs. With all that being said, though, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Again, if you hit that like and subscribe button, it goes a really long way. And I'll see you guys this afternoon for the value plays.